Welcome back to the Garlic Marketing Show, our continuing series on kind of EOS. This is along the lines of it. We're going to talk about core values, culture, which is absolutely critical, and how to market your culture and core values and how to do so much with it more than just hanging on a wall. And our guest today is an expert on it, the Culture Fix, start the Culture Fix Academy, and is the founder of culturesours.com, Will Scott. And before we talk to Will, don't forget this is brought to you by storycruise.com. If you're looking to improve your culture and excite customers and your team, video case stories, not testimonials, will keep everyone engaged. To learn more about how to collect them, craft them, deliver stories, as well as find those experts trained to find the best stories, go to storycruise.com/case story. All right, Mr. Will Scott, thank you so much for being on.
Excited to be here, Ian.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk culture and the intersection of culture and marketing.
Yeah, I love it. And we're going to talk about how to use it in your marketing. I think a lot of people use it, if they use it in the wrong way at the wrong times, but it can do so much. And we're talking about how to maintain it. I mean, it's transformed our business like we talked about beforehand. Yeah. But well, before we get into that, you have an incredible history. You were an EOS implementer, but you also lived in 6 countries, worked businesses everywhere.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about your background and when was that? I want to get your background, but I also want to find out when was that moment you're like, oh, culture, this is it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So I actually I'm an entrepreneur too. And I started my first company in 1999, which is basically a SaaS-based supply chain software company. And yeah, I discerned our core values and went quite big with those then. But it wasn't really till I bought into my second company, which was a mobile app development company in 2010. And a couple of years into that, we'd set our core values, but maybe I'll get a chance to talk about how they really came alive. We had murals on the wall, which I know you do, but the team actually gave me costumes. We personified our values. I was wearing costumes. And the moment probably was I was at dinner and my 17-year-old daughter was able to rattle off all of the values of my company. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And so I knew then that we'd really gone a little bit further than most employees can't even name their core values. They're just empty words on the wall.
Yep.
So I think that was kind of a work and personal moment that really made culture such a big thing for me.
That's phenomenal. I don't think my son knows the name of my company, much less my core values.
He will.
And so when did you decide that, hey, what made that happen? Let's talk about that first. What made the culture the core values more than just something hanging on the wall?
Yeah, well, it sort of happened, little by little. And then suddenly we looked back and we said, wow, this is fantastic how this has grown. But one little thing there was a movement from simply having like most people's core values. When I'm asked to work with a company these days, they nearly always show me their core values. And it's just plain black and white text on a piece of white paper that they hope their employees have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid, But we played Pictionary at beer o'clock on a Friday. 4 p.m. was beer o'clock. And I had internal artists because we were designing mobile apps. And one day I said, guys, do you think, let's take our core values and see what images you would just, sketch for those. And before long, we had these characters, these superheroes, and they were just an awesome representation of each of our values. For example, one of our values was custom clients come first. And we came up with Captain Client, who was this cape-wearing superhero. We had Passionista, representing our value of passion and energy. And she was also a really cool superhero. So it began like that. And before long, every town hall that I had every week, I was wearing a costume. And we also had a whole language. We could say things like, hey, where's the Passionista in you? Hey, you're leaving at 5 o'clock? Captain Client would never do that. And we knew what we meant. So we developed this whole language, costumes. And if I may tell one quick story in answer to your question, Ian, another defining moment for us in culture at the mobile app development company was when my employees came to me. They came from the design department. We called them the dream team because they could dream, if they could dream it, we could build it. They said, Will, we need a definition, a culture, a process, in EOS terms, if you like, a process, documented process followed by all for how we work with clients. I said, wow, that sounds fantastic. What would that look like? And they came back with this amazing, set of process document about how with the values in there, how to work with clients. And that helped raise the game across the whole company. And it wasn't me or my idea or my leadership, it was coming from them. So that's when one of the great things that happens in a strong culture is people start making decisions the same way you would. And, they really bring it for you and you don't have to do it all anymore.
And a lot of people, if you haven't had the success with culture, you don't know, they might think this is a nice to have. And hey, I've got to worry about sales. I've got to worry about, profits. I've got to worry about systems. I've got to worry about getting the stuff out the door. I don't have time to be wearing costumes. I don't have time to be, having town halls. That's for bigger companies or other companies. That's not for me. How did this affect your bottom line?
Well, actually, I like to say that, going into new markets, developing new products, opening a new warehouse, whatever, that is all high cost, risky stuff that may or may not work out. Investing in culture is a very low cost, huge return when you get all your people on the same page, all, collaborating, living the values, people like where they work, like who they work with, also have a purpose or a why to why they're working. That's just an amazing environment. Doesn't cost much, huge return. And to those folks, I would say, you don't have to wear a costume, but I do suggest that every minute or hour you spend investing in your culture will give you a far more significant return. And when you've got that right, the stuff will go out the door far more effortlessly and you'll be hitting your KPIs better. You'll be growing faster and making more money. I mean, and I, you don't need to believe me to hear this. So many CEOs who are embracing culture first leadership and it's working for them.
Yep. And I think it's more important than ever, A, in us going remotely, but B, we're seeing now, so many people having trouble hiring and keeping team members harder than ever. We thought that we're gonna have this big employment problem, and instead the employment problem we have is finding employees.
Yep.
And that transforms it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Not only finding employees, but of course finding employees that fit your culture, which I know something, Ian, you do very well at Garlic Marketing, is screening for folks that are going to fit your culture. So yeah, that makes it especially hard. But once you get the magic of culture going, of course, you do end up being a magnet actually for folks that want to come and work for you. And it is even possible that you can have, people waiting in the wings for that moment when you've got a spot for them, because they not only want to do great work, but they want to work somewhere that feels great. And that word feeling, we got to start talking more about that, Ian, because that's ultimately all kinds of definitions for culture. But for me, it's about the feeling you have when you're working with your mates in the company. And people want to feel good. And they're getting less tolerant about, putting up with bad work environments. So yeah, but again, create a great culture. Then you're easier to be a magnet for talent.
Yes. 100 magnet for talent and the right people too. Like you said, it all starts to click. The work is better because they're thinking the same way. And, before we get into it, because I want to talk about, marketing and growing your business with core values, as well as, how to adapt. I don't want to ask you a bunch of questions about how to do this, because you have the Culture Fix Academy, and that's at the culturefix.academy. We'll put the link in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link's down below.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that and your book, obviously the Culture Fix.
Actually, so seeing as you mentioned the book, the Academy is based on what I call the 9 deeds in 90 days that are talked through in the Culture Fix. Having core values or culture definitions is just the beginning. And it's often the exciting, the fun part. One of the things that's unique about the way we do culture is merging graphical imagery with the core values and putting a core purpose on that core chart, as we call it. It's often an exciting, fun part. But I always keep hammering home to clients that, okay, now the work begins, because you don't want this just to be empty words on the wall. You need to make sure they're alive and thriving and being used to drive your performance. And that's really what the Culture Fix talks about, is how to maintain a great culture once you've got your cultural definition. And that's one of the fun things about EOS. EOS is a fabulous system. It helps people determine core values, but it doesn't really, go much beyond that. And that's where I find my program and a lot of EOS people using EOS, do adopt the Culture Fix for really expanding their Culture Fix program. Yeah.
And make sure to check it out. I'll tell you what, I'll be honest, I haven't looked into the pricing, but obviously you've done a great job. It took me, I think, 5 years of serious work, figuring out core values and culture. The stuff didn't really, it was like, hey, you need a good culture. You need, 10 years ago when I started the business, none of the stuff was there, but I realized this was so important. It took 5 years. And unless it's like $1 million for the Culture Fix Academy, which is probably what it cost me not doing this.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're not doing this, make the time to do it. Make it one of your quarterly rocks, because it's so important.
And as I think you just highlighted, Ian, one of the things that I think people don't know is, well, how? Yeah, I want a great culture, but how do I genuinely have a great culture? And so that's what I, managed to figure out leading my own companies. And so when I sold the mobile app company, my second company, that's when friends started asking me, hey, Will, can you come and help me with my culture? And that's actually how I got started with this third company of Culture Czars, and now serving that content up online with the Culture Fix Academy, was just friends who are other entrepreneurs saying, hey, come and help me with my culture. You wouldn't believe, Ian, how many entrepreneurs don't actually enjoy working in their own company anymore. Isn't that crazy? It's usually because there's a couple of bad apples in there that don't make it fun. And so, yes, part of what we do is assess the current employees, unhire the unsavory ones that are making the whole thing taste bad. And then, of course, help them screen or hire employees that are going to be a great asset to the culture. Yeah. You mentioned pricing. If I may, listen, it's right now we're actually inviting founding members in the Academy because it's brand new. We just launched this month, and it's $299 a month to be a founding member and get access to all the content that I have proven, can really work and help enhance cultures. And we do measure it. But you can measure culture very much so, and I'm committed to that. And for example, I worked with a company recently in Minneapolis. We measured their did their NPS score and their culture at the beginning of the project. And Ian, it was a 66.7. Pretty good, actually. And I find often companies that invest in culture already have a good culture. But by the time we were done, that was 88.9 NPS on the culture score, just 5 months later.
Wow.
So you really can measure culture, and these things really do work. So.
My name is Gino Wickman. I decided that I want to start to put great video content out to the world. And so the goal was one great video every week. And so I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
I'll tell you, you're dead on. I've been at that point where, I didn't like my company, hated, it was like, I didn't like coming to work today. And it took me a while. I was like, is it sales? Is it what we're selling? Is it clients? Which I think it was all of that, but it all came down to the team members. And it wasn't that they were necessarily bad. They just weren't the right ones. And, that probably took 5 years off my life. So what's 5 years off your life worth?
Yeah, right.
I've never been so stressed in my life. So Culture Fix Academy, make sure to check it out, the culturefix.academy and the Culture Fix book. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, once you get this in place, and, a culture definitely, I'm sure you talk about internalizing it, but how are you using it in your marketing? How are you using it to grow your business? How are you using it, to grow your team? Like you said, attract the right people. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So, gosh, this is exciting to think about. So I'm going to talk about at least two things. The first one is figuring out your why or your core purpose. In the chat before, Ian, you mentioned Simon Sinek. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And so one of the things I do help with clients do is their core purpose. And lots of people think they've figured out their why, but when I dig in a little bit more, what they actually have got is a what. So I find that in people's why statement, the two keywords are so that. So this is what we do. Okay, but why? So that, and that's the impact you have on the world. And that is often not, of course, about the company or the company's client, but often about the client's client. That's often where the why is really found. Why do I mention this as being important in marketing? Because actually that can also be an amazing tagline. If you figure out your why, for your client's client, or figure out your why in general, that can be a real connecting tagline to your key audience. So I mentioned that as one very direct thing. Culture, or having a why or a purpose to why we work is so important, especially millennials, especially post-COVID. We care a lot about the way we spend our time, and we don't want to just do a job. We want to do a job that's making a meaningful contribution to the world. Figure out your why. It's great for your employees, can be great if it's also a tagline for connecting with your clients. That's the first thing. The second obvious thing I would like to say about working with a culture first mentality towards your marketing is aligning yourself, your business, with companies downstream, customers, and vendors upstream who align with your values. And I would love some of your listeners, Ian, to kind of go through their customers and give the customers a little rating against how those customers line up with their core values. And of course, won't be a surprise that they'll find out that their best customers fit very well with their core values and are probably easier to work with, number one, which is likely to also mean they're going to be more profitable. So when you're picking your customers, look for that. So I hope that's a couple of sort of tidbits around culture, the intersection of culture and marketing.
Yeah. And I think, I agree with the culture statement that you said, like, I love that, finding customers that fit your culture. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to gloss over this because you say it more profitable. And I think it's such high level, but what are the ways, and I have a pretty good idea, but I want to hear from you. What are the ways that you become more profitable when your customers line up with your culture?
Well, so I mentioned the fact, I think that the key thing is that they are easier to work with, right? So there's less friction in the relationship. Those customers accept your pricing better. They communicate better, right? They respond more quickly, perhaps. One of the most frustrating things for a lot of companies is when their customers don't respond and they don't help me help them, So I think response times can be better, and the way that their employees interact with my employees is better. There's more creativity there. There can be less fear in the relationship, which is definitely, fear is a real, that'll kill creativity very quickly. There's less clock watching. There's all these good things that happen when you are aligned with a company that has the same values as you, and all that reduction in friction makes it an easier relationship. And like I said, I do believe that's then also there's going to be more profit follows. And when there's new opportunities, the creativity between those two teams that are working, they look for opportunities to upsell and do more work together. So that's some of my experience and the opposite is also true, right? Yeah. Companies that complain, don't respond, don't like your pricing, pay late. That's all high friction stuff. And I bet you they don't line up with your values. And those customers should probably be unhired so that you can go and work with more clients that fit your culture and make your whole life easier,
Yep. Yeah. And you spend more time with those customers that don't fit.
Right.
And to, I think one added bonus, and it's more than a bonus, I think it is a huge profit center, is your customers that line up with your core values and your culture. I've found they know more people that line up with your core values and your culture. And guess what? They refer you more customers.
That's
they
right.
talk about you.
Yeah.
And, and they're willing to do like those case stories that we talked about and do videos and help you out, help you grow your business. So you talk about long-term value, that just becomes exponential.
Yeah. By the way, I was very interested to check out your website and see that you do these videos for your clients. And I wonder how many of your clients are asking you to do culture videos for them now? Because I find once people have discerned their core values, they've got the poster on the wall. Maybe in EOS terms, they've got the core values speech figured out. But why not make a little video about that helps the world see what our culture is like? And of course, works for new employees and all those kinds of things. Is that work that you're doing?
Oh yeah, we do that. So, first we start with customer stories and we help other videographers learn that. But also, that about us is the second most used page on your website. Most people don't, spend much time. They don't realize that. But if you look at it, people go to your homepage, they learn more about your services. And I like to start with why. I like the idea of it. But when it comes to business, people are looking, hey, do you solve my problem? When they finally figure that out, they're like, okay, do I like you? They go to About Us. And that is the perfect place to be putting your core values. So you weave that into a story of how your core values will serve them.
Yes.
And guess what? We've seen huge increases. People are able to charge more. People, like you said, happier with their business. Now, most of our clients, I would say 50% have not been through your process, I think they're not as defined in their core values. So it's something we have to pull out of them. I'm going to be sending them the Culture Fix book, but but to your point, this is such an opportunity to engage clients at such a different level, And when guess what, you become a friend to them.
It's funny you mentioned that about Us page, because I happened to be looking at one for a company this morning, and most people have, at least if you're in the service business, right, they have pictures of your leadership team with a bio. And I'm thinking, my God, weren't we doing that in the 90s? I mean, a video today, it's video, isn't it?
A video, but a story, right? Story. I mean, I read these bios. I'm like, it's a CV. People I'm hiring, I don't even read their CV. I'm in the resume, I'm asking about their culture and who they are at their core values. It is such a huge opportunity that, line up your culture and then start marketing with it. And it's the ultimate differentiator, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I'm reminded about another way of bringing culture to the marketing process, because, one of the sales tools that we talk about in EOS actually is the proven process, and how that helps show the customer what to expect when they start working with you. It's a huge kind of thing in terms of taking away any kind of fears that I might have, or understanding about what's it's going to be like working with you. But what I like to do is take that proven process, I call it the core workflow at the Academy, and your values on there too. So now when you're talking somebody through that, you can say, so in this part, we've got our value. This is where teamwork really comes into play. In the sales process, we're all about integrity. We're never going to sell something that we can't deliver, and our sales guys live by that. And you sort of weave your core values into that pitch, if you like. It really starts to help people understand who you are and how you work.
I love that. I didn't even think of that before. And it's funny because process video is another one of the videos that we spend a lot of time telling people to do.
Oh, right.
Because we started putting a process tab on websites, and it came close to the About Us tab, if not tied with the most used, because people think that we know they understand our process. But simply going, we do this is not as intriguing as, like you're saying, weave your core values into it, and why you do it this way.
Yeah, and that can easily be an animated chart too, kind of, rather than just sort of boxes and arrows. Animate it, put your values in there, and it's a more powerful tool for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you're going to transform our process a little bit today. Fantastic. So we talked a little bit about building a team, and it's harder to build a team now more than ever. How are you using the culture and core values, like you talked about, to market, to find team members? What are some of the techniques that you can use to do that?
So, if what's one of the first things a prospective employee, if they're thinking about applying for that opportunity, at your company, and what's one of the first things they're going to do? They're going to go to your website, aren't they? And check you out. And so maybe it's on that About Us page that we were talking about, but it's something that helps show what it's going to feel like to start working for that company. So often a company has a certain look, and then we get on the other side once we're in the company, and it's not what we saw. So being genuine, being authentic, videos are great at doing that. Having people just telling the story, existing employees telling the story on video about what it's like working on the inside. If that really is a genuine, trusting, safe environment, then when I'm looking at that, I'm getting a feeling for the culture before I apply. Once I'm on the inside of, assuming I'm successful, the company, I believe, is going to reflect what I saw. And that's what I want. I want it to meet my expectations, not be something completely different.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Because that's going to cause for very unhappy.
Right. Yeah. And of course, in the interviewing process, I think it's really important at the final hurdle. So you may have what your screening processes are, but the final hurdle, you let that employee just go out to dinner, that prospective employee, go out to dinner with some of their peers. And, the question you ask your peers the next day is, would you have that person on your team? And
that's a good idea.
Yeah, because then that sort of makes them think, well, do I want to work closely with that person? And that's where the sort of values, thing's going to kick in. So I like that. And then one of your screening procedures, of course, should be behavioral-based questions that are looking for the behaviors that the applicant naturally is going to display. And I love to use company stories, the favorite company stories from folklore, to craft those behavioral questions. So, there was this one time when it's 5 o'clock on a Friday and they had a commitment to a client. So people stayed late and kind of, to get it done, or whatever that story that everyone remembers, when everyone rallied round and everyone from the CEO to the, junior intern were all there kind of, getting it done. Maybe whatever the story is, capture that story, capture the values that were displayed there. How does that sort of link to your culture? And then use that as a behavioral question for the applicant. And of course, the right answer is what actually happened, or at least one right answer is what actually happened. So anyway, however you do it, behavioral questions that are based on stories from the folklore within the company will help that, that screening process. It's not perfect, it's not easy, but the more you do it, the better you get at that. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I mean, if you think about that, what you just described is dating, which we should do before we get married, which is hiring an employee, right? Take them out to dinner.
Yeah.
Take them to meet the family. What does the family think of them? Yeah. And then swap stories and say, what do you think about this story? That's, that's phenomenal.
I also encourage the use of my tool, the core score, against your cultural values, but also you can use it for applicants. And so 3 or 4, 5 people met this applicant, all do the score independently. What does this person score for collaboration out of 3? What do they score for? And it's just because it's objective. We're asking ourselves, or subjective. What would they? How do we think they would behave? But how do they, rank for those different things? And again, if 5 of you all scored a certain applicant higher across 4 or 5 core values, that's much more likely to be somebody that is going to fit than somebody that isn't. And it just takes that so the core score takes that, what otherwise can be a gut feel thing, forces you to put a number on it, gets 5 different opinions. That can be really, really insightful.
Wow. I love that because we use it internally here to coach people, but I love it on the screening process, having a scoring.
That's right.
I didn't even think of that because I was like, we ask questions about that, but that scoring idea is genius. It's genius. Man, that's phenomenal. I've got so many notes now. I got to go.
It works.
I got to go get back to work. Awesome. So, tell me a little bit more about, we've got the Culture Fix Academy, we've got your book, but if someone wants to work with you, someone wants to hire, and like, I just want Will. I want to work with Will because I want him to get this done. What's that like to work with you?
Well, so over the past couple of years, that has been absolutely that's been my career, really. That's been what I've been doing. And I can tell you, helping companies with their culture, Ian, I don't need to tell you this. I'm sorry, I take that back, but you can be sure it's joyful work and it's very meaningful work. You're dealing with people's feelings. You're getting under the DNA of people. And unlike some, business systems, this is not just go in every 90 days, for a day and then come back, next quarter. I find this is work where we get embedded with the client for long enough to be able to observe and notice what's going on. Sometimes they don't even see what's going on. I remember one of my clients has got a children's development business in Chicago. And just by observing her, I noticed that she used to say things like, "You've got this." Talking to a kid who's got autism and doesn't want to make that leap. "You've got this," And so we actually "you got this" ended up being a descriptive behavior for one of their core values. And some of their other folks would say that. Little things like that, external observers can help wow, there's this language. "You've got this." Now, I know lots of people say that, but at this company, it's different. We made it a part of their cultural definition. Now, everyone that gets hired up is talked through the core values, and is talked through the "you got this" or the win-win-win or the have fun, all descriptive behaviors from her core values. And definitely helped just make their culture and, very, very successful. So anyway, that's the kind of work I've been doing. And just like I told you, so all this work has led to a bunch of case studies and it's sort of proven in my process and kind of knuckled it, really, honed the process. And now what I would like is other folks to be able to do what I've been doing. And so we have this role of an actuator. Actuators are trained, culture fix consultants, if you like, or coaches that can go into companies and do what I do now. So that's what the Academy is really doing. It's enabling other independent consultants to take to their clients proven culture fulfillment program. And I call it culture fulfillment because we're not going in to figure out or stamp or dream up, or we're going in to fulfill the culture that they have and make that, positive thing that they can build on.
And it's so important, and it's invaluable. And you can try and do it yourself, but if you've been in business 4 or 5 years and you haven't gotten it right, it's going to take you 2-3 years more. And if you get it at all, and it's going to, this is obviously a way to accelerate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Work with an actuator for 3 to 4 months. And you can go through get all the pieces done. And all the pieces means you're doing surveys of employees, interviews of employees, surveys of customers, interviews of customers. We begin with that. Also do a health checkup on the company culture. Then start through a workshop, about one workshop every 90 days for 3 months. We go through discerning the core values, adding the imagery, getting into things like the interviews that we talked about. What are the screening questions, how to core score, how to measure your employees and applicants, what's the why or the core purpose for the business. All these pieces get knocked out in that sort of four-month period, and it ends with a launch. We launch the culture, and then we do a post-launch survey, and then we do that sort of prove and improve cycle every 90 days where we're helping, just fine tune and make sure that the company is still keeping the culture, first and foremost. And it's fun. It works great. And I'm looking forward to having some of your listeners maybe reach out and talk to me about the Culture Fix Academy.
I hope they do. I mean, it makes so much sense for so many people. For any business, if you don't feel like your culture and core values are really, like you're saying, actuated, like really put into place and driving your bottom line, improving your company, building a company that you love, you got to do this. Otherwise, your life's too short, right? And all the money in the world isn't going to make you happy if you're miserable at your business.
That's right. That's true. So it's not just the company, of course. The CEO often is just after this huge sigh of relief when they just start to feel how things are going differently. It's like I said, it's very rewarding. Yeah. Smiling and be happy when you walk into work. There's little better than that. I mean, obviously there's the family and personal side, but we're spending so much of our time at work, and even if it's virtual, and we didn't really even get into that, but I guess we'll have to have another conversation sometime. But Will, so we go to culturesours.com, the culturefix.academy. You can look up the Culture Fix on Amazon. It's available there and all the formats. Yep. And where's the best place to follow you and connect with you personally? Whichever format you like. LinkedIn. I mean, I'm active every week on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. So yes, any of those. And the Culture's Ours, spelled CZARS. They'll find any of those. The Culture Fix Academy assets there's not much there to see yet. We're so new, but the two companies are very closely linked. So there's lots of content there. YouTube as well, of course. Lots of videos on YouTube. My little, tidbits about culture are also posted there. Awesome. Well, Will, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been an incredible conversation. Yeah, thank you, Ian. I've enjoyed it, and good luck. And it's great that you're embracing culture within your own company, and that your tools can help companies improve their culture via the videos that you can make for them. So it's great stuff. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining Will and I. This has been Ian Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.